Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Thursday, the 10th of October, 2019. And we are going to conduct a brief interview with controversially Greg on the age-old issue of Brexit. Now, we normally leave these interviews for the inner sanctum. And of course, Greg's podcast with Marcus each week is conducted and published on Sundays. So if you are an Inner Sanctum member, please make sure you either go to the Discord channel or to the website in order to listen to the latest podcast. Now, that said, a lot has been happening, and Greg has promised to curtail this to less than 10 minutes. So, Greg, welcome once again.
Hi, my pleasure.
What is happening with Brexit, Boris Johnson, and is there going to be a deal? Because your colleague Richard North wrote earlier today that a deal looks far away.
I think people, first of all, and I keep on reiterating it, must realise that what the opposition and Remainers who are carping at the fact that they didn't get their own way, and they may find sources of income that they were hoping to get from political preferment within the European Union, have diminished. What they were tending to do was talk down Brexit all the time. They were also very cleverly using the term a no-deal Brexit. There's no such thing as a no-deal Brexit. 160 countries around the world have what the dishonest Remainers and politicians who are defaulting on their promises call a no deal. It is a deal based on World Trade Organization rules. That is the deal. What they really mean, but won't say it to the public, is not a bespoke deal. In other words, it doesn't have areas of it which are agreed between both parties over and above a WTO deal. That said, immediately Britain voted for Brexit. The European Union, all the unelected political offices and apparatchiks, been in uproar, because always in the past, when somebody has voted against something in the European Union, they've merely been made, as with most dictatorships, to vote all over again until they got it right. Britain made it very clear this was not going to happen. So the backstop position for the European Union's negotiating team was to do almost everything within their power to make sure that Britain didn't get a good deal. Otherwise, there would be many other countries they felt would be tempted to leave, bearing in mind that Ireland voted against the European Constitution. France voted against it. Denmark voted against it. Holland voted against it, which is a fairly poor track record of success for the European Union. The fact that they got out of that one by making some of those countries vote again, like Ireland, until they got it right, they never did permit France another vote because they thought it might get worse for the European Union. They merely changed the name of the Lisbon Treaty and changed the point size to make it look different of the publication and called it the Lisbon Treaty. They were going to call it the European Constitution. We are now in a position after 3 years of fiddling and faffing, mainly because the British government under Theresa May did not understand how to negotiate with the Europeans, which is basically with a fist of iron in a velvet glove. They trusted the European Union to be working towards a deal that would be mutually convenient, mutually beneficial. There was no likelihood of the European Union putting this on offer. So there were no negotiations. There were people presenting their side of the argument and being ignored by the other side of the argument. We are now in a position where we have literally 3 weeks to go before we leave the European Union. The British people voted to leave. They want to leave, and it is in their interest to leave. and well they know it. It has been made very clear to us that it's very much in our interest to leave, having seen the behavior of the European Union in their mock negotiations and their perpetual denials of what they're doing, as with, no, there won't be a European army. Well, have you seen the recent plans for the size of the European army? It's quite staggering. It will turn it into a major military organization. This is the European army that they denied they were going to have. And there are many instances of that. It was thought that it was all grinding to a halt and there would be no outcome of benefit to Britain in a bespoke manner. And Britain is being threatened with no deal and leaving on those terms of World Trade Organization dealing, along with the other 160 countries or so that trade with Europe on the same basis. Yes, that would be disadvantageous to Britain, but not an outright disaster. The disaster comes about because we didn't take this on board right at the outset and plan for it until Boris Johnson took over and realized he needed it as a negotiating tool, because this so-called no deal is not in the interest of Europe either. Up until
Greg, sorry to interrupt. On that point, because we've only got a couple minutes left, because we're going to keep this within 10 minutes, Boris Johnson's hands are tied in that he is not allowed, as I understand it, he is not allowed to allow the whole edifice to come crashing down on the 31st of October with WTO terms. If he cannot negotiate, to use your words, a bespoke deal and get it through Parliament and ratified in Europe by the 31st of October, my understanding is he has to request an extension. Now, is that accurate or not?
There was the surrender bill passed and again euphemistically called the Ben Act, to prevent leaving with no deal. In other words, remove realistically his only negotiating tool, and leave him in a position where he had to accept absolutely anything that Europe handed down, locking us into the European Union as the European Union had planned at the outset. They have realized that the British people don't want that. Johnson's popularity has gone through the roof because he has been promising that we will leave and he will make sure we do. And the opposition, regardless of which party basically, either the dreamers and fantasists of the Liberal Democrats, who seem to be very upset at the fact they won't continue to get free handouts from the European Union for doing nothing, and the Labour Party, who will find that they are not a popular party in this country without the support of Europe. They are all desperately trying to bind Boris Johnson's hands.
Sorry, Greg, are his hands tied or not? You haven't made it clear.
I haven't made it clear for the very simple reason that it isn't clear.
Right.
There are those that claim there are loopholes in the Surrender Act. The public are in favour of not renewing. Much of business would like not to renew the negotiations for the simple reason that this interminable indecision is very damaging for Britain and for Europe and for business.
So I understand the Parliament, for the first time, I think, in decades, is now meeting on Saturday. What is that all about?
Parliament is meeting on Saturday because there is a Queen's speech on Monday, and the meeting on Saturday will be addressing the issue of the meeting today with Leo Varadkar of Ireland and Boris Johnson, held basically in total camera in a wedding venue in Cheshire, where it has been agreed between Ireland and Britain that there is hope of having a bespoke deal in time. You say that he would have to beg for an extension on the 31st. This isn't actually true. He has to request an extension on or before the 19th if there is a failure on the 19th to get it agreed that there is a bespoke aspect of the deal in place. For all the posturing of the likes of the rather foolish and unpleasant Guy Verhofstadt, past Prime Minister of Belgium, and his anti-British stance, the mouse that roared, the European Parliament will, in the main, go along with its president. And there is every hope now that Varadkar, realizing that sooner or later it was all going to go against Ireland unless some sort of agreement was met, has agreed that it is possible to have a deal in place in time. So
there is hope.
Today, this will be discussed, I believe, on Saturday, together with some detail of the Queen's speech. Beyond that, I don't know about the Saturday meeting.
So will that mean that your podcast with Marcus that we publish on Sunday might include that, do you think?
We record the podcast usually on a Friday or Saturday evening, preferably a Friday, because as you found out from the other podcasts that you did today with me, podcasts take quite a while to edit.
Yes.
Laughingly, he said, particularly my podcast, because I do tend to have some fairly forceful and fairly lengthy answers.
Indeed. Well, Greg, thank you for your not so lengthy answer, but still moderately lengthy answer today. Thank you for the update. It's greatly appreciated. So the bottom line is we still don't really know what's going to happen, but there is potentially light for a deal. But
there is light for a deal. We have always wanted a deal. And there is no doubt if we don't get a deal, that it was Europe's intention to make sure we didn't, so that they didn't give one iota of encouragement to the other countries that may well follow us in leaving eventually. However, I believe that if we are forced to remain in some underhand and dishonest manner, the European Union will be over within 5 to 7 years. If we leave, I think it's got 15 to 20 years before it collapses.
On that note, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. And please tune in tomorrow's video where we talk about climate change with Greg. And it's the second half of the video that we published today. And I can assure you the information is quite revealing. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.